Well, they finally did it. The left has finally achieved what they've been gunning for a long time now. Robert E. Lee statue was removed in Richmond, ex-capital of the Confederacy, after months of protests and legal resistance. Yeah, this is the big famous statue that both sides of the argument are always sort of pointing to. It's been a real contentious thing for some while now. For those who don't know, right, Virginia has over the years drifted more and more left-leaning. And as they go left-leaning, and part of that has been sort of abandoning a lot of their Confederate heritage overall. Yeah, but they've taken down other statues, and they took their statue of Jefferson Davis out of the Capitol building, I do believe. And they've just been scrubbing all this away, intentionally, knowingly. And when they had the big riots last year, they saw it as sort of their moment to bring in all sorts of radical changes, such as this. Say it was because outcry. Same thing Mississippi did, the whole, bullcrap around the flag, where the government just up and changed it for no good reason. Yeah. This is basically the same sort of mentality of anything vaguely Confederate is now bad, which of course is just retarded and silly. So let's get into the article here. Workers have removed Virginia's biggest statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee from its towering stone base and cut it into 2 pieces, ending the monument's 131-year reign, embodying this city's mythology as the former capital of the Confederacy. Lee's surrender came so fast, after less than an hour of work Wednesday, that hundreds of onlookers were caught by surprise. Workers who had affixed slings to the statue from a cherry picker began waving their arms, urging the crowd to cheer. And one of the workers held up 5 fingers, then 4, then 3, 2, 1, and a crane lifted the statue from its base. The crowd roared and began singing, "Hey, hey, hey, goodbye." Lowered quickly to the ground, the statue of Lee stood looking directly over the crowd, cheering and taunting him from behind barricades. Governor Ralph Northam and other state officials stood looking on, along with Rita Davis, the former counselor to the governor, who formulated the legal plan that led Northam to order the statue's removal. "I was always probably 90% sure we were going to get here," said Davis, who was black and attended Washington and Lee University. A small group of residents filed unsuccessful lawsuits to protect the monument, and the Supreme Court of Virginia rejected their appeals last week and cleared the way for removal. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Gone by 9, whatever. This is, for leftists and historical revisionists, a very big victory. A big symbolic victory, because Richmond was a capital of the Confederacy, historically, and furthermore, it had just a huge Confederate heritage to it. It pretty much always has. Since, 1861 to today, or to very recently, it's always been one of the most overtly Confederate parts of the South. It's an area that really kept its identity and that really kept that patriotism for the Confederacy intact, generation over generation. Now what we're seeing is they've specifically targeted that place because of that reason. And, these groups who want to get rid of Confederate heritage, people like the governor, people like Ty Sedgley, people like all these other, either historical revisionists or leftists or others, who more or less they see everything Confederate as inherently evil, as inherently problematic, which it really isn't. If you look at Robert E. Lee specifically, he's easily one of the greatest people the South has ever produced. Not perfect by any means, but a good man, a good general. Would he be, say, a racist by the standards of today? Sure, but a lot of the things that really get leveled on him, he almost seemed portrayed by leftists and revisionists sometimes as like this race-obsessed maniac, sitting there wanting to keeping all black people in chains everywhere and expanding slavery over the whole world and all this stuff. But they portray the whole Confederacy that way. But basically, it's not even true. Robert E. Lee even explicitly said, that he hoped slavery would die away, in due time, just due to changing attitudes. And people also call him a traitor, for instance. Like, that on the face of it is just silly. But the fact that people just say it and they just call this a civil war and they call, the Confederates rebels. Even people who are pro-Confederacy, they call them rebels. They think of it as rebellion. Even that, it just goes to show how much revisionism has really taken over on this issue. The Confederacy was a sovereign country, separate from the U.S. because secession is technically illegal under the Constitution. And the Union is, as far as the war is concerned, completely in the wrong. Now, was the Confederacy perfect? No, they did support slavery. Many of the initial states did secede specifically for slavery. But at the end of the day, they had every right to exist. They had a right to secession. They had a right to their sovereignty. And Lincoln took that away for basically no reason beyond, geopolitical and economic. Robert E. Lee, at the end of the day, he's a man who he fought for his state. He fought to protect his home. And there's no way you can really call him anything but a hero. Robert E. Lee is a hero. Period. Full stop. And there's no way you can really say otherwise. He's a man who deserves statues. Even if maybe he didn't want them, maybe that's humility, maybe it's practicality. However you want to look at it, say, oh, he's too humble to want a statue, or he thinks it might inflame tensions between the former Confederate states and northern states. Whatever it was when he said that. At the end of the day, he deserves statues. He's one of the best men that Virginia ever produced. He's up there with Washington. He's up there with Martin Luther King Jr., which, wasn't Virginian, but still. He's up there with, Winston Churchill and any other great leader you can really think of. At the end of the day, he's done nothing wrong. Robert E. Lee did nothing wrong, per se. There's nothing problematic about having statues. Having a statue of him is a good thing. He exemplifies the qualities we want to have. We want people to have. He is a hero. He is a role model that every child in the South should look at and say, wow, I want to be like him. That guy's awesome. I want to be like him. That's what they should say. But instead, because of the left's own psychosis, and these revisionist own psychosis, for various different reasons, they want to attack all things Confederate and broadly all things Southern, basically. They want to take what they like from the South and everything else they want to destroy all of it. Because for the leftists, they see it as a culture with strong European heritage, and that's bad. And as being very traditional, very old-fashioned, and that, they look at that the way we look at Satanism. The left is just totally psychotic in that regard. Radical leftists, that is. And these sort of Yankee revisionist types, they don't want there to be any regional cultures in the U.S. They want this single, homogenized American mythology that everyone adheres to as history. They want this single, homogenized culture that's exactly the same from Florida to Washington, from California to Maine, from Alaska to Mississippi, from Hawaii to Michigan, whatever. They want it exactly the same. One nation in a literal classical sense, a true nation, which America's never been. It's always been very regionally diverse. And basically, these people want to end that. I guess out of their own patriotism, or the fact that their culture has become just basically vague American stuff. They want to turn all other regional cultures into vague American stuff. Honestly, I think this just goes to show how far Virginia has fallen. The big cities and the whole northern part of the state at this point, it's not even the South anymore. Because for years, for decades, for generations, they've had constant targeted attacks trying to remove Virginia from being Southern in every way they could. And in fact, they want to remove the South altogether. That's why they move here. That's why they flood us with immigrants. That's why they keep us poor. That's why they make us have no voice. They overrule our decisions. They want to make us lose any vestige of our own unique identity, be it from the Confederacy or from anything else. They want our culture to be destroyed. And this is a huge symbolic victory for them, defeat for us in that regard. This is a huge step in that direction. Once all Confederate heritage is gone, then they can attack other aspects of Southern heritage. Any other aspect of our history and our culture. So yeah, not good.
Show me how them titties fart.